Whoa.
Whoa. We're choicing down an experience design studio in Austin, Texas, where it is hot, full of cicadas. There's a cat outside earlier. That's nice. We work with entrepreneurs and product folks to design playful virtual experiences. And today we're going to talk about spaces and shared activities and how, when they work together, the interplay between them creates good experiences.
Indeed. And we thought we'd kick things off talking about the OG space and experience, which is the campfire. And the campfire is the space. The experience is cooking food, sharing stories from your day. I don't know, what else do you do around a campfire? Make s'mores. That's food.
Make s'mores. Talk about, like, you're within imagine the campfire setting. It's flickering. You see the faces around you. You're figuring out how to build a village. That's probably next in the world. And you're also not in the woods where things can eat you. So you're comparing notes about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. And there is a design of a campfire, like top to bottom. I mean, how the fire is like actually built is a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you probably have some safety precautions around the fire. And it's a circle. It's not a square or maybe some kind of, like, I don't know, dodecahedron, something like that. Like, it's a circle. And all of that is intentional so people can see each other. So when they're doing things like telling stories, they can see each other. And that's important to convey emotions and experience well.
Yeah.
So,
and you can imagine that having evolved, that structure of a social space and a fire in the middle. You can play off of that in lots of different ways, and it affords a lot of different kinds of things. So architectures that have that capability are good architectures.
yeah, and there's plenty of architecture that is taken totally, like, whole cloth from the campfire, like kitchens, dining rooms, and then, I don't know, everything that branches off of that. So, like, houses are designed in a specific way. And architecture, like real world architecture, like brick and mortar, like homes and buildings, are a really good example to talk about, even though our work is in the virtual space, because it's tangible. And we're in a space right now, a built environment. Most people listening to this and watching this are probably in some kind of built environment, not out in the woods somewhere with, I mean, maybe.
We haven't really gotten to know our audience yet. They could be in a canoe. They could be Walden ponding somewhere. But
if you're on a canoe listening to this, please reach out.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of different built environments, and there's such a range of built environments that it just helps convey the message that we're trying to drive home in this episode, which is that the building or the architecture, the place, the space, and what's happening in that space, they're related. They're kind of co-designed in a way, or co-evolved, where they're not created without each other. So the ways in which we live and work and play, it's related to the structures that we're inhabiting.
Yeah. And so there's a sense of, we wish to do something as a people, and that stuff emerges over time culturally. And we build buildings around that kind of thing. And then the built environment becomes something that can be repurposed for different kinds of shared activities. And
Totally.
So there is this mutually affording thing that happens. And so, I don't know, we can go to some concrete examples of like kinds of places that we see buildings and things happening in them right now.
Yeah, I kind of like doing the off the wall ones, not really off the wall, but interesting and very specific ones. So like a circus gym is one that pops out all the time to me, or like a rock climbing gym. They're so hyper specific to the activity that's happening within them that it's harder to do other things within those spaces. And it just, again, it's driving home this message of the fittedness between the space and the activity within the space. Another one that popped up was firehouses, and how they've got fire poles in them. Most buildings you see don't have fire poles in them unless you're doing some, I don't know if this is what avant-garde is, but you're like, I'm going to be cool and flashy and I'm going to have a fire pole in my living room that goes down to my basement. I mean, that's pretty, if you could pull that off, that's pretty awesome. But most houses don't have that because most people are not feeling the need to emergency slide down a pole and run out the back door.
I mean, billionaires who have the sensibility of an 8-year-old, like they've got a lot of resources and they want a social experience of.
I like this. I like this. So it could be the fire pole down into the bunker.
Yeah,
That's where we're getting.
for when
Okay.
the end times come.
And you could even maybe have like the pneumatic vacuum tubes as well so that you could travel between bunkers. So you have like a friend network. I get it. So,
Futurama predicted this.
oh,
See,
smart. So, place and shared activity. You want to hide from the world, you create a bunker. I mean, there's another example.
I don't know if it's so shared, but yeah, yeah. So there's an example from sort of the design and creativity world of Steve Jobs like laying out the Pixar campus,
Mm.
and there are a bunch of different departments that are coming together to make a Pixar production, and I think initially the architects had them pretty spread out and like sort of compartmentalized. And Steve Jobs,
Sure.
in his brilliance, decided to design for serendipity. That in the creative process, if people are bouncing off of each other physically in a space, they're
Yeah.
going to have conversations that are cross disciplinary, and these are sort of unplanned collaborations. And so. He set up the campus to have this big atrium in the middle between all of the departments, and you know Toy Story happened or whatever. It was probably after Toy Story, but you get the idea.
So that's kind of like the water cooler. Like people
Yeah,
find each other at the water cooler, which also is maybe a more modernized version of the watering hole.
yeah,
So you create thoroughfares where people are going to be going anyway. Like they have to travel in a space to use the bathroom or maybe to go to the parking lot coming to and fro from the building, or maybe it's the dining hall. All of again, and all of those spaces are built for specific activities too. But something like an atrium where it's just for the purpose of serendipity is pretty cool because a lot of places don't have that now. I think that historically that used to be a thing, like town squares, like,
yeah,
city design. And now, even if we have town squares, people seem to be trying to move through as quickly as possible. And there's less, I guess, I don't know, design affordances for just hanging out and spending time there, which is
yeah.
a
I mean,
bummer.
the built environment affects how people are with each other, and like if you have a built-in environment that is centered around car travel and you're
Yeah.
separate, and
Yeah.
you get what you get from that kind of thing, and there are outputs. So the virtual environment
Yeah.
has these affordances as well. It's much newer. It works differently because we're co-present in a different way, right?
Yeah.
We are able to. Kristen is in one room and I'm in another room, and we're able to come together and create a virtual artifact, right? And we could structure the space that we're in, which is this virtual recording space, to have a shared experience, which is this podcast, in a
Totally.
lot of different ways, right? And so if you extrapolate that out to the sort of built virtual environment and the shared activities that are possible, you get this formula for different types of experiences.
Yeah, and some obvious examples, group text messages. So maybe like a friend chat or a family chat is obviously very different than going on Twitter or being in a Telegram community potentially, or a Facebook group, or some other space where people are congregating. There's distinctions across all of these. There's different felt senses when you go into those spaces of what's happening there and how people are relating to each other. And yeah, again, it's so strange because you can't really point to one or the other. Is it the space that is causing this like felt sense different, or is it the activity that's causing this felt sense difference amongst these different places? It's the interplay between them, and that it's a bizarre thing. It's like chicken and the egg. Well, what comes first? It doesn't really matter what what comes first. It's the relationship between them and how they influence each other, because they definitely do. And in virtual environments all the time, you build something and people will come in and it's designed for a specific activity. So like you had an experience early days of Twitter, and when it was much smaller and people like writer's room was one of the ways that you described it. And so I don't know if there's anything sparking here for you, but I know when I heard you tell these stories in the past, the felt sense of that was so much more quaint than it is now. And there's a history of how Twitter came to be what it is now, or I guess I should be saying X. And there's a way that it got there, and it is this interplay between what people were doing on Twitter and what different features and affordances emerged within the app, the space that is Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter is actually a good example of a small. Their campfire was microblogging, right? Like and the fire in that case is a small post, and the environment is a feed that allows many people to come in and then follows, like, sort of stick it together. So it's got these social and media attributes. And early days, no one knew how to do anything with this, right? But it was like an extraordinarily productive environment, because it was very playful. Because no one knew how it worked. People were just experimenting left and right.
Sure.
That environment has been, I think, established, and social norms have grown out of it. There have been movements, when Elon Musk bought the thing, it shifted the environment, so there are much larger scale social activity, I guess, weather or climate or something like this now. And we're concerned more with the relational, like, scope of this, smaller groups and this kind of thing. So within those contexts, though, there are activities, and you can use that built environment however you like, right? So a sort of model comes to mind with the closest thing I can think about on this front is like cities, and skateboarding sort of emerged from, like, the urban environment being used for purposes that it wasn't intended. Totally. And so we like this mentality for the built virtual environment too. If you can build a new place and it can be intentionally designed around a particular feeling sense of a shared activity, to emerge types of experiences, great. That's pretty expensive. If not, then, like, how do you hack the existing environment, and how can you understand what the affordances are there so that you can play?
Yeah, totally. And in our experience professionally, we've worked with people on kind of both sides of that continuum. We've worked with engineers and developers who come to us and they have a sense of the technology that they want to build with, and they have maybe an instinct about the tech stack that they want to use. And then they're coming to us because they want to bring that interplay, that relationship with the shared activity more into the project itself. And so that they can start, again, it's this like co-evolving, co-shaping. They need to know, how do we fine tune the architecture? How do we make these design decisions in the engineering itself, in the space, based on what's going to be happening in that space? And I know, Dave, you have more instinct here. So if I'm saying anything that, you've got jumping off points.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you have more instinct in the shared activity space, and then I've done more work within the build environment, but with maybe less of a relational quality to the type of building. It's been more utilitarian, but the principles where they overlap, they apply. So effectively, the best collaboration between build and design, like engineering and design, is an understanding of the material. We can go back to Pixar for this. Like the engineering pushes story and story pushes engineering, and you get this feedback loop that produces an experience. It just happens to be a narrative experience. For us, our experiences are more participatory, and the technology that is coming online with the internet is a participatory, interactive, interplayed based medium. And so engineers and developers that come with a sense of what you can do with the material, great. We can then play, and then we come with the sensitivity both what you can do with the social,
Yep.
like the shared activity side of things, and how to apply that into the technological. And so that combination produces, through iteration, the sense of what are we trying to get people to feel? What do
Yep.
we wish them to come away with? And that interplay, when it works best, is very cross disciplinary.
Yep.
And yeah,
Yeah, so we have an approach for how we like to work with developers and engineering teams or startup teams where there is this very hands-on collaboration that is cross-disciplinary. So we're not creating silos of, go over and build a bunch of stuff and we'll go design a bunch of stuff and then we'll meet in the middle and like see how it compares. I mean, of course there's sometimes where you need to separate and like do individual work. Yes, we try to design spaces, containers where we're actually working together so that we can talk out and feel out and create little, I don't know, like simulations of what it might be like when we're incorporating both the activity and the space in relationship. And so we'll probably get into that in another episode because we do have an opinion on prototyping and a style of prototyping that is more efficient and I think playful. There's like a fun way of doing this when building,
yeah.
building
I,
from scratch.
it's a microcosm of the Pixar atrium, just in a build sense. Uh, yeah, there. I think maybe pointing to when there is a a gap between the disciplines and the
Sure.
interests here, the kinds of outcomes you get. In the case of sort of building a virtual environment for a social activity that is,
Hmm.
maybe overly developmental in like engineering in its sensibility, and design being a, a sub discipline of engineering in this case. I've had the experience of like really imagining and planning out like a social product and something like, and really designing it with a bunch of gizmos and cool things, and presenting it to people, and then it doesn't take. And I've seen this happen so many times. And this is maybe falling in love with the architecture, the blueprint, the build. On the inverse side of things, if the architecture is not taken into account, you
Hmm.
can design a social experience, it's social activity, shared activity, where it doesn't understand the flows between the rooms and the walls and the structures, in this case like DMs or posts or feeds or anything like this. And what you can get is a loss of navigation
Yeah.
or a decoherence
Yeah.
in
It's
social.
discombobulating kind of.
Yeah, because it's not fitted to the environment. So yeah, when those come together, though, you get a lot more out of the experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's a similar thing if you think about in person in like architecture, real buildings, you're having a conference or a meeting or something, and there's multiple different rooms and there's navigation patterns, there's flows to get between these rooms, and people need to know where the bathrooms are, this kind of thing. They need to be able to navigate from their car to get in. It's a similar thing as like what we were describing with the Pixar atrium and like the design of a space where there's through flows. In this sense, if people don't know how to get between meeting rooms, if they're not sure how to make that navigation, this is where you get that feeling of discombobulation, or you feel lost, or you don't know where you are, and people start wandering off, or they're late to sessions, like that kind of thing. And the same exact scenario can play out virtually. And virtually, I think it's even more difficult from the social perspective because you can't walk around like you can in a physical place and go find where people are getting lost or potentially congregating in like a pop-up place because a bunch of people got lost in the same way and now they're together.
Yeah.
Virtually, they might be somewhere where you don't know how to get to them. And I know that like personally, even I'm just like, I don't know what's happening. I'm done. I'm going to log off. I'm going to go do something else because I've lost the felt sense of flow. So it's the flow, I think, that we're talking about, that it really like the interplay between the space and the activity, making sure people feel held in that experience in a way so that they're enjoying what's happening. Because if you're
Yeah.
not, it's distracting.
They're connected, like to themselves, to where they are, to the
Yeah,
social field. They're very embedded, embodied in that kind of thing. And this is a relationship between the context, the environment, and the form in which they are playing in, which is the shared activity. And when those things combine, there is an animating spirit, a livingness to what's
totally.
going on. And we've all felt this. Like you're in a place, like a show or something like this, and like the vibe is right, the music is good, the people are not, and you get this emergent quality, or a great conversation around a dinner table, and like things are flowing, and the host has done a great job, and the food is paced just right, and everybody is showing up and being present. You get this emergent quality, and so we are looking for that, and developing techniques and processes and ways of playing these things into being.
Yeah, and that experience that you're describing, having a positive experience, is embodied. We feel it like in our bodies. And it is something that can happen virtually as well, which is really neat. So you can use technology to mediate that felt sense experience, even though you're not in the same place. And there's a bunch of cool stuff you can do with the virtual environment that you can't do in the physical environment, because you can play with space time, which is, I mean, as far as a medium goes, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so, I mean, this is the area of our interest, and collaborating with people who have this sensitivity, and in particular developers and engineers who are playing in new medias and new technologies, to try to create new models of coming together and emerging these experiences, is what we're all about.
Yep. And I think in later episodes, we'll get into kind of some offshoots of what we talked about today. But yeah, this is one of the core, like most fundamental aspects of our work, is creating that sort of relational interplay, relational system between space and activity for experience.
Thank you for sharing this activity with us on this hot day in Austin. It's
In
not
this
hot in
in
Austin
this
where you
space.
are, in this space.
Oh yeah, the space is called the clearing. We didn't say that in the beginning.
Oh
That's our
yeah, I'm
that's our
Dave.
podcast.
I'm Dave, and did we do that?
We did that.
Okay, well, we forget to introduce ourselves, which that's fine. Bye.
Bye.